Got the old stubble pile burning here. Figured I'd light her up downwind and just let her kind of do her thing for today. I'm sure this is going to go for 2 or 3 days, but the majority of it should be burnt today. Splitting some firewood back there. Let's go in the shop and putter. It's getting cold out in the mornings. I just about lit my first shop fire today, but not quite. Sooner or later, though, we're gonna be sub-zero here, and it's gonna be cold. See you guys in the shop. Okay, friends, we're in the power saw shop, hanging out like we do. How's everybody doing today? Having a good day. I've been meaning to light that pile up. It's been so dry here this summer. I didn't dare. I didn't want to be that guy that causes a grass fire. Anybody that's been on the prairies, when the wind kicks up here, we can get 50, 60 mile an hour winds with 70, 80 mile an hour gusts here. I've had it happen where I've lit a roaring fire and then the wind shifts and starts giving her, and that's scary. So I picked the right day. She's calm today, and it's actually starting to rain outside a little bit, so perfect day to light a pile like that up. That thing will just smolder for probably 3-4 days, and then it'll probably still be warm for about a week. So nice to get that done today. Okay, I want to talk to you guys about Mr. Buckin's 850. You guys saw in the last video that we ran this saw. It runs pretty good, doesn't it? I think it's a pretty strong saw. I'm very happy with it. If I wasn't, I'd be the first one to tell you guys. It runs very strong. I didn't push the timing numbers on this saw, and we're going to time this thing today, so stay tuned. We're going to time this saw, and I'm going to show you where the numbers are at now. They are not exactly as when I ported it, because this 800 crankshaft, remember we had that crankshaft issue, and buddy Dave there sent us an 800 crankshaft. The 800 crankshaft actually has a little bit longer stroke for whatever reason. So we gained, and I don't know if it's just this crankshaft or if it's all 800 crankshaft. This crankshaft, the cylinder parks 10 degrees higher. Okay, so what ends up happening is we tightened our squish, which is exactly what the doctor ordered for this saw. This saw ported has more compression than it did stock, believe it or not, and we did raise the exhaust roof. So you guys were right there with me, and we raised the exhaust roof 3 degrees, 4 degrees, so pretty interesting. I want to talk about this saw, what I felt. First thing is, this thing's really zippy. When you touch the trigger, it lights up right now. Typically, that would be a higher exhaust roof saw with middle of the road intake timing, I find. I didn't add a ton of intake timing to this saw, 9 degrees, but it runs good. The exhaust roof on this thing was at 100. I don't know if it's at 100 now. I'm going to guess. I'm going to do a little guesswork here. I'm going to guess that we lost a degree on the exhaust roof by changing that crankshaft. I think it's probably more like 101 now. Not sure about the intake. I'm going to say total intake duration is probably 131 degrees now. And I'm going to say that the transfer is open at 114 still. It's in the same kind of area. I don't know that for sure, but I just thought I'd take an educated guess and we could see if I'm right or wrong. I put the timing wheel on. This is a test saw. Buckin wants to run ported 850s. It's a thing for him, and I'm trying to make that happen. I'm trying to make this thing cut close to a modern saw, you know, like a ported 372, something like that. I'm trying to get there, but the only way to get there is I'm going to have to go in increments. This thing right now, it pulls hard with a 32 full house on it. It pulls pretty hard, and it's actually pretty fast in the cut. So I think by losing all that weight, where's our flywheel here? I want to show you guys again. Let me grab this here. Okay, look at the difference in these two flywheels. This is the one we're using. I think it's off a 1010. This is the stock 850 flywheel. Okay, this thing is substantially heavier than this thing, all the different fins. Okay, so there's the difference right there. That's a lot of weight savings. Now, when you lighten a flywheel, that causes the motor to get moving faster, because when you touch the throttle, when you touch the trigger on a saw, the lighter reciprocating weight, okay, of this, and this crankshaft is lighter also. We saved, I can't remember what Dave said, 100, 150 grams of weight. That's substantial on something this size. So when we actually lightened all this, we created a saw that's snappier without doing a ton of intake timing work or anything like that. We created a saw, Dave and I, because this was his idea. He said, you want to try that? And I thought to myself, of course, you know, if we could share something with you guys that are watching, why not? So this is a totally an experimental saw. It works. It's bolt on more or less. And so we created crack. When we say crack, when I touch the throttle, it goes like this. I like a saw that's really zippy when you touch the trigger, especially if you're a limit in that. I don't like a saw that's kind of lazy. So this, I think this was the key. I think the reason why this saw runs so well is the lighter rotating assembly. They do that in race cars, stuff like that, and it really works. The other thing is, I did a lot of transfer work to this saw. And that shows you, I gave this saw bigger transfers. This saw is getting more fuel on the top end. When it's up at higher RPM, it's getting more fuel. We added extra intake timing to allow it to have enough fuel to fill the transfers. Because remember, anything below the upper transfers is considered case capacity. So whether you grind on the cases or grind on the transfers, it adds case capacity. That creates more power up top. Okay? So guys that build go-karts, dirt bikes, if you're on a short track with a dirt bike, guys typically will put crank stuffers in. That creates bottom end pull. So by making the transfers bigger in this thing, we're getting more pull up top where we want it. Because when you're cutting with a saw, you're full throttle. Okay, in my world, I want a saw that pulls at the top where you're running it. So I just wanted to fill you guys in with that. I get a lot of questions about why I do what I'm doing. These are all just educated guesses. I don't know everything, friends. You know what I know? I know that I'm having fun, and I know that I'm enjoying doing YouTube videos for you guys. So that's all I know. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. I'm still working on that Echo. It's up there hanging up. You guys have been asking. When I get that thing solved, I'll make a video on it. I'm not sure. I think maybe I took the flywheel off and the timing key was a little mangled. So I don't know if the flywheel come loose. It didn't come loose enough to fall off, but maybe the intake time or maybe the ignition timing on that saw is the issue. So I got to get another timing key, and when I do that, I'll bolt it all back together and see. I'm still inclined to think that maybe that saw can't handle 25 degrees of transfer blowdown. It could also be that. So, again, friends, when I get the Echo sorted out, I'll make a video on it. In the meantime, let's get this thing timed. I got the 268 giveaway saw. You guys are asking about that too? Right here. We're going to jump back into that. We did a video where we built the bottom end, right, guys? We do everything together here. That's why I say we. You guys are hanging out in the shop. Did the bottom end video and kind of let it sit. We're going to get back into that project and finish her up, get her ported and assembled and run in, and then I'm going to give that saw away to one of you guys. Okay, let's time this power saw. I'm going to grab my scope here. Let's time this power saw and see where it's at. I'm guessing 101 on the exhaust, 114 on the transfers, and I'll get you guys right here. Now I already have this zeroed. There, that way you guys can see 120, 130. Okay, here's top dead center. I love sharing this stuff with you guys. Learning how to read a timing wheel, it was just like magic. It all started with the Iron Horse for me, folks. That Harvey, he was the first guy to come on YouTube and actually show this stuff. So thank you, Harvey. I was porting in the dark before I met him, and that's the truth. And that's why I just want to share knowledge and help other guys out. And share the info. Okay, so we got this. I've been using this to check timing because that light is so good and it fits in there. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, again, I just want to show you guys, use my stop here. Okay, so I push it so it touches the cylinder wall and it's right at the top. Check for 0. Okay, 56 degrees. Can you guys see that? There you go. Just try to do it so the perspective, you get a little bit of a perspective difference. Okay, same thing, 56 degrees. Okay, so we know it's zeroed, everything's good there. Always turn it in the direction so the front of the saw is there. Let's put this back in there. You guys saw Buckin and I do this over the phone. That was fun. I've never instructed somebody how to time a power saw over the phone. That was a first for me. That was a riot. Okay, top dead center. Now all I'm going to do here is I'm going to look through the exhaust port, see what we got here from this. Okay, top dead center, it's coming down, coming down. Where do we open? Right about there. Here, I'll take you guys off the mount. What does that say? 101 after top dead center. So we gained a degree of exhaust timing. See, I wasn't sure, but I knew because the piston travels higher, I knew it would open later. I was getting about 100 on that. I literally stuck this back in just to make sure. So, it runs right there. And it's all on how you have the light shine too. Okay, 101. Right there. Spin it around again and do this 3 times. Okay. Put it back to 101. Okay, 101 every time. Okay, friends, checking this 3 times. These Macs are harder to time because the intake port or the exhaust port is so short. Normally I do the first ray of light technique. This, you got to look straight at it. Okay, these are definitely trickier to port. Okay, 101. So I checked it 5 or 6 times. It's hitting 101 every time. So we got 101 after top dead center on the exhaust. Now what I'm going to do, let's put this a little bit higher. I'm going to look through physically. Okay, and I'm going to look for when the transfer's open. Now this one's easy to do because you can see the transfer's good. Right there. Okay, and what did we end up with? I'm just going to double, triple check. Right there. So it looks like we got about... What did we get on the transfer timing? So it looks like we're at about 115, 116 on the transfer timing. So we definitely got a little bit of blowdown out of this. Interesting. It's neat to see how the different crank, because the crank's a little bit taller, you get different numbers. So I'm going to say these transfers are at 116. And I can reconfirm by looking through the exhaust port. Okay, I'll stick this back through there. See, now by looking this way, by looking through the exhaust port, that's why it's important to check it with a ring. We're at 115. Okay, so we got a degree on the transfer timing. I'm just going to write that down here. 114, 115 after top dead center. Okay, and now what about our intake? Let's look on the other side. When is our intake open? This is going to be a little harder for me to see because where does it open? Somewhere right about there. What did we get on our intake? Just looking here. I think we're close. Hold on, friends. No, we don't quite have it here. Let's try it a little bit more. Intake opens right about there. Just a crack. Interesting. So according to this, we lost. Hold on. Oh, it moved again. Intake opens right there. Okay, I got it this time. 65. See, friends, even I fumble sometimes with this. These Macs are a little bit different to time. Okay, so we're at 65. Okay, 65 before top dead center because the wheel's traveling in this direction. Okay. Now, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check the total opening of the intake because I have a feeling I like to check total opening of my intake because this is the port that if you get it wrong, the saw don't run properly. Where does our intake close? Somewhere's about there. Okay. 66. Okay, and I'll show you guys again. 66. Oh, 67. So interesting. We know our timing wheel is zeroed, but funny thing is, by checking the intake duration, okay, we actually have an extra degree in there roughly that we don't have. If we just checked when it opened, we'd say 65. It's at 65, right? 65 times 2 is 130. You guys can see right here. It's at 65. Okay. Now I know this timing wheel is zeroed because I've checked it about 15 times. Okay. I just wanted to show you guys this kind of stuff. When I find something that's strange, that's the stuff that's the good stuff. Okay, and then it opens, and then where does it close? Right about there. Okay. And we're at 67. So intake on this saw, 65 plus 67 is 132 total opening. Interesting, isn't it? The crank does not move in a linear fashion. And just to prove, okay, take my piston stop. Okay, I'm going to put it in the cylinder in the same spot. 56. Okay. 56. Now let's just stop at 56 in the other direction. If it does, this thing's zeroed. Okay. What do we got? 56. Okay, so I want to show you guys that. I don't think I've ever shown that on video before. So the cranks don't always move in a linear fashion, and especially on intake timing, if you push intake numbers, if you're pushing numbers on your intake, and you get a saw that don't run good, but your opening time is, say, it's 78, and you only checked it at 78, it could open at 78 and it could close at 81. It does happen. Here's a perfect example. Now you're past 160 degrees of intake timing and your saw's spitting back through the carb. So I found that, I find timing this saw interesting because I haven't timed this saw yet, but it's like right there. This is one of those saws that I'm glad I checked. So that crank gave, we lost 1 degree on the exhaust, so it opens 1 degree later. The transfers open 1 degree later. The intake opens The intake opens at 65 and it closes at 67. So actually ended up with 1 degree of, what do we got here? 1 degree of intake duration more. Sorry friends, I'm going back and forth. Okay, so by changing components, you can actually change your timing, whether it be a piston, whether you're lowering the cylinder, whether you change a crankshaft. So it's really important to double check everything so that if you get one that runs really good or really bad, sometimes it's just a matter of changing components. So, am I going to do more grinding on this saw? I don't think so. I'm really happy with where it's at. It's a strong runner. It starts and idles. I want this to be a falling saw for Buckin. It has to run on its saw, on its side. He has to be able to throw it down on the ground and it should just purr. A falling saw has to be stone dead reliable. And I've learned this because I'm not a faller. If he's got a 3-foot fur and it's windy and he's got to steer it in the cut and, you know, he's banging wedges, that saw's got to sit in that kerf and sit there and purr. If he's got to start getting that thing moving, if he touches the throttle in and he's cutting the hinge, if he needs to steer that hinge a little bit or take a little bit more wood here, if that saw stalls, he could lose that tree and that's it, you know. So a falling saw is a different game than something that you're cutting cookies in the backyard or anything like that. They have to be super, super reliable. And that's a testament to the Iron Horse, folks. When I see Buckin doing work, he's generally running an Iron Horse saw. Harvey makes power, and his saws seem to run really well. Like they don't do funny things. So that's what I'm shooting for on this. If I'm going to import power saws for guys that live on them, they got to be stone dead reliable. So I don't think I'm going to push the numbers anymore on this. Maybe. Anyhow, friends, I think that's what we needed to show for today. I'm going to tear this down and do a full inspection of the cylinder. I don't see anything that's bothering me about it. I just want to have a look-see at my work. That's all it is. I put 3 or 4 tanks through this thing. I want to take a peek. I want to look at the scorch pattern on top of the piston. It's starting. I want to make sure the transfers are flowing nicely. I'm going to do a few moves to the piston to get it to oil better. I'm going to chamfer all the edges, break the circumference or the periphery of the bottom of the piston and the top crown. All those little things, when you do them, it just helps the saw live. It'll gather oil better, and I'm going to do that. And I'm going to Loctite everything, seal it up, and then we'll get the saw back running, and then off to Buckin it goes. Anyhow, friends, I think we're good for today's video. Thanks for hanging out, and I really enjoyed building this. I'm super glad that you guys got to see this thing run. This is a special saw. It's a special build, and it turned out pretty good. I'm really, really happy with this. I'm really glad I took the chance and ported that Super Pro 70 and sent it to Buckin, because the feedback that I got from that saw is what I'm doing with this. He gave me good feedback on that saw, and I know what to do on a Mac and what not to do. I know Macs will run at crazy RPM because that thing's screaming. So it's good. It's good stuff, friends. We're all learning together. Okay, friends, got my toque on here. I think we're gonna call her a day. Got some burning done, got some yard work done, so I'm happy. I'm really happy with this 850. As soon as I'm done puttering with that 850, we're gonna jump back into the 268 giveaway saw. I put that down for a couple weeks because we're working on other things, so we're gonna pick that back up. I'm gonna show you guys how to port that. You're gonna see that that is very similar, in fact, identical to the 670 that we gave away. So if there's any hints there, same bore and stroke, same timing numbers. It's true, friends. Yeah, I want to thank everybody for hanging out here. Everybody that takes the time to visit this fella. Love having you guys over. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching. Take her easy. Later.